You've seen it in pretty much every courtroom drama, right? A witness is about to drop a bombshell and a lawyer jumps up and yells, "Objection! Hearsay?" It's a classic moment, but what does it actually mean? Well, today we're going to unravel one of the most confusing rules in the legal world, and I promise by the end of this, you'll finally get it.
Right, so that's the big question. It seems so simple. A witness gets on the stand and says, "But I heard him say he did it." That sounds like the most important evidence you could possibly get. So why is it so often banned from the courtroom? That's the puzzle we're going to solve together.
And hey, if you've always found this whole thing confusing, you are in very good company. Even legal scholars say this rule is a total mess. But don't you worry. In the next few minutes, we're going to give you the one single key that makes the entire thing click into place.
All right, first up, the hearsay puzzle. Let's really dig into why this rule, which seems to block perfectly good evidence, even exists.
I mean, just think about your own day. Our lives basically run on hearsay. You trust a friend who says a new restaurant is great. You act on a news story you heard about. It's all secondhand information. But inside a courtroom, the standards are totally different, and for some very, very good reasons.
So how do we solve this puzzle? Well, it turns out there's a kind of golden rule, one single idea that unlocks this whole hearsay concept.
Okay, so here it is, the official jargon-filled legal definition. It's a real mouthful. An assertion made out of court, offered in court to prove the truth of the matter asserted. Yeah, I know, it sounds like a lawyer wrote it, because one did. So let's just push that aside for a second and talk about what it actually means.
This right here is everything. The whole thing boils down to one simple question. Why is the statement being introduced in court? If you're using it to prove that the statement is true, that's hearsay, and it gets thrown out. But if you are just using it to prove that the statement was made, that the words were actually spoken, well, that is not hearsay, and it's allowed in. This one distinction is the key to everything. Let's see how it works in the real world.
This is where the rubber meets the road. We're going to look at a real case that makes this difference between truth and fact totally clear. So, picture this. A man is on trial for having illegal firearms. His defense is simple. He was under duress. He says terrorists threatened him and his family, forcing him to hold on to the guns. But when he tries to tell the court what the terrorists said, the prosecutor objects. Hearsay. The judge then has to apply our golden rule. Is the defense trying to prove the terrorists were telling the truth, that they really would have carried out their threat? No, not at all. They just needed to prove that the threats were made. The fact that he was threatened is what explains why he acted under duress, so the testimony was allowed. You see? The court didn't care one bit if the terrorists were bluffing. All that mattered was that the threat was spoken, because that fact explained the man's state of mind. It's the golden rule in action. It was about the fact of the statement, not the truth of it. Let's lock this in with two more quick examples. First, the false alibi case. You've got two suspects, and they both tell the police the exact same, obviously fake alibi. Can that be brought up in court? Yes, but not to prove the alibi is true. It's to prove the fact that they told the same lie, which shows they conspired together. Now compare that to the workman accident. A widow wants to testify about what her late husband told her caused his fatal accident at work. This is classic hearsay, and it gets blocked. Why? Because her only purpose is to prove the truth of what he said. And since he can't be put on the stand and cross-examined, the statement is out.
Okay, so we know what the rule is now, but why? Why do we have this complicated system just to keep certain things out of the courtroom? Well, it all goes back to the birth of the modern trial itself.
Hundreds of years ago, trials were a different beast. Jurors were basically expected to use their own personal knowledge, gossip, rumors, whatever, to reach a verdict. But as the system evolved, the rules changed. By the late 1600s, this new idea took hold that a trial should only be based on evidence presented right there in the courtroom, by witnesses testifying to what they personally experienced. The hearsay rule was just a natural part of that big change.
And it really all comes down to fairness and reliability. When a statement is just being repeated by someone else, we lose three critical safeguards. First, the person who originally said it wasn't under oath. Second, the jury can't see them. They can't judge their tone, their body language, whether they seem credible or not. And third, this is the big one, the pillar of the whole rule. The original speaker cannot be cross-examined. You can't test their memory, their perception, or their honesty, and that is considered absolutely fundamental to a fair trial.
So, we have covered a ton of ground, from legal definitions to old court cases. But if you walk away from this with just one thing, let it be this next point.
When you're trying to figure out if something is hearsay, forget about what was said for a moment. Just ask yourself this one simple question. Is this statement being offered to prove it's true, or is it just being offered to prove that it was said? That's it. That's the key that unlocks the entire puzzle.
And that leaves us with one final thought. This rule was born in the 1700s, a world of word of mouth and handwritten letters. So in our modern age of endless text messages, emails, screenshots, and social media posts, does this 300-year-old rule still make sense? Does it strike the right balance between protecting fairness and actually getting to the truth? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.